Many people believe brain protection after 60 involves avoiding stress, eating well, and using popular supplements. After 20 years as a neurosurgeon, I can tell you that picture is outdated and critically incomplete. There are 3 things you can do in 10 minutes every single day that your neurologist has probably never mentioned. They're backed by published clinical research, they cost nothing, and after 60, they may do more to protect your cognitive function than most of what is currently in your medicine cabinet. My name is Dr. Marcus Reeve, and today I am trying to explain the 10 minutes daily brain habit most seniors skip. Stay till the end. That will help you. Here's the reality I want you to sit with before we get to the 10 minutes. By the time you notice cognitive slowing, the moment it takes longer to find a word, the moment you lose your place in a task you've done automatically for years, the process behind it has already been building for a decade or more. Brain aging is not an event. It is a process that begins silently, that builds quietly, and that becomes visible only when enough reserve has been depleted that the brain can no longer compensate. The brain has extraordinary adaptability, what neuroscientists call neuroplasticity. The capacity to build new connections, strengthen existing pathways, compensate for areas of reduced function. This capacity does not disappear after 60, it changes. It becomes more dependent on specific types of input, on deliberate, consistent stimulation. The 10-minute practice I'm going to describe targets 3 specific mechanisms that protect the aging brain: cerebrovascular health, glymphatic function, and neuroplasticity itself. Let me show you what happens inside your brain when you practice these 3 things, and what happens when you don't. After 60, your brain faces a specific threat that most people are never clearly told about. Your brain's small blood vessels, the arterioles and capillaries that deliver oxygen and glucose to neurons, are under constant pressure from chronically elevated vascular tone. Every point of blood pressure above the ideal range is loading those small vessels. And after 60, those vessels are already less elastic than they were at 40. Think of them like garden hoses that have been left in the sun for 20 years. They still carry water, but they're stiffer, less tolerant of pressure variations, more prone to microscopic damage. That microscopic damage accumulates as white matter changes, the bright spots on brain MRIs that represent areas of past injury to the brain's white matter pathways. Mild changes are common with aging. Moderate to extensive changes are associated with significantly increased risk of vascular dementia and stroke. The good news: the vessels that supply your brain are responsive to specific types of intervention. Not in weeks, in days, measurably in the research literature. So let's start with the first one. Practice 1. Slow and controlled breathing. 4 minutes. This is not a meditation suggestion. This is vascular physiology. When you breathe slowly, at a rate of 4 to 6 breaths per minute, something specific happens in your autonomic nervous system. The balance between the sympathetic system, your fight or flight activation, and the parasympathetic system, your rest and recover function, shifts measurably toward parasympathetic dominance. In practical terms, your blood vessels relax. Vascular resistance drops. Blood flows more freely, including through the small vessels that supply deep brain structures. A 2021 meta-analysis examining slow breathing protocols found consistent and significant reductions in systolic blood pressure, the number that most directly affects cerebrovascular damage, averaging 8 to 10 millimeters of mercury with regular practice. This reduction in blood pressure has been shown in research to be in a range comparable to the effects observed with some low-dose antihypertensive medications. From breathing, for the brain specifically, slow breathing increases cerebral blood flow by reducing vascular tone and by improving the coherence of heart rate variability, a measure directly linked to prefrontal cortex function, executive control, and emotional regulation. How to do it? Inhale for 4 seconds. Exhale for 6 seconds. Extend the exhale longer than the inhale. This is the key to parasympathetic activation. Do this for 4 minutes. Set a timer. Sit comfortably. You don't need to close your eyes. You don't need silence. This is the most powerful 4 minutes you can give your cerebrovascular system every day. Let's continue with the second one. Practice 2. Cold water exposure. 2 minutes. Please hear me out before you dismiss this. I'm not asking you to take an ice bath and not for your whole body. 90 seconds to 2 minutes of cold water on your face and the back of your neck, either from a faucet or at the end of a shower, triggers a response in the brain with direct neuroprotective effects. Cold exposure activates the norepinephrine system in the brain. A single 2-minute cold water exposure has been shown in research to increase norepinephrine levels in the brain by 100 to 300%. Why does this matter for the aging brain? Norepinephrine is one of the primary modulators of neuroplasticity. It signals the brain to consolidate connections, strengthen important pathways, and clear unnecessary ones. It also plays a direct role in regulating inflammation in brain tissue. Specifically, it acts on microglial cells to shift them from a pro-inflammatory to a neuroprotective state. Chronically low norepinephrine is associated with poor attention, reduced executive function, and increased vulnerability to neurodegeneration. Cold water exposure is one of the most reliable methods to acutely and meaningfully elevate it. Additionally, cold water exposure on the face activates the diving reflex, a mammalian response that redirects blood toward the brain and vital organs. For individuals with cerebrovascular insufficiency, this reflex briefly improves cerebral perfusion. This does not require tolerance for discomfort. Cold water on the face and neck for 90 seconds. That is the minimum effective dose from the research. And the last one. Practice 3. 5 minutes of focused cognitive challenge. The third component targets neuroplasticity directly. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new connections and strengthen existing ones, is use-dependent. The brain reorganizes itself around the inputs it receives. Inputs that are novel, effortful, and require active problem-solving drive the strongest neuroplastic responses. Passive activities, watching television, listening to familiar music, do not generate the same neuroplastic stimulus. The key variables are novelty and cognitive effort. 5 minutes of deliberate cognitive challenge, practiced daily with progression, meaning the challenge increases as you adapt, generates measurable changes in hippocampal volume, in the density of prefrontal cortex connections, and in the processing speed of white matter pathways. What counts as sufficient challenge? Learning a new language, even 5 minutes per day on a structured app. Learning a new instrument. Working through logic puzzles at the edge of your current ability. Reading challenging material and then summarizing what you read from memory. The critical element is the edge of your ability. Activities that feel too easy are neurologically comfortable, but not neuroplastic. Activities that require genuine effort at the boundary of your current competence trigger the brain to build. That mild frustration you feel when something is just hard enough, that is your brain receiving the stimulus to grow. 4 minutes of slow breathing. parasympathetic activation, vascular relaxation, improved cerebral blood flow. 2 minutes of cold water exposure, norepinephrine elevation, microglial neuroprotection, brain blood flow activation. 4 to 5 minutes of deliberate cognitive challenge, neuroplasticity stimulus, hippocampal preservation, white matter maintenance. These 3 habits totally take 10 minutes. Do you think dedicating 10 minutes a day to these 3 habits is too much to protect your brain health? I think it's even a little bit. The research behind each of these components is not speculative. It's replicated. What's missing is the synthesis, the recognition that these 3 mechanisms work on 3 different aspects of brain aging simultaneously, and that the combination, practiced daily, represents one of the most powerful interventions available for protecting cognitive function after 60. I want to be specific about what daily means. The research on neuroplasticity shows that the stimulus needs to be consistent, not intense, not hours long, consistent. Small daily inputs compound over months and years in the same way that small daily insults compound into damage. The patients in my practice who maintain the best cognitive trajectories into their 70s and 80s share a common characteristic. They have built brain protective habits that require only minutes per day and that they have maintained with extraordinary consistency. Not perfect consistency, consistent consistency. Most days. The contrast, the patients whose function declines fastest, are patients who wait for a diagnosis to start protecting the brain. By the time a diagnosis arrives, a decade of opportunity has already passed. You are not waiting for a diagnosis. You are watching this video, which means you are paying attention to your brain health before the window closes. That matters more than most people realize. Let me close with a patient I'll call Arthur. He is my wife's uncle, 68 years old, former architect. Came to me after his primary care doctor mentioned that his cognitive screening scores had dropped slightly over 3 years. Nothing dramatic, below the clinical threshold for any diagnosis, but a trend that concerned him. We reviewed his lifestyle. Sleep quality was poor. He had no consistent daily brain protective routine. He was sedentary during work hours. We built a 10-minute morning protocol based exactly on what I've described today. 4 months later, his processing speed on follow-up testing had improved. His sleep quality scores, measured objectively, had improved, likely as a secondary effect of the improved vascular tone and parasympathetic balance the breathing practice generates. He told me, "This is the first time in 4 years I've consistently felt like myself in the morning." It is not a medication, not a procedure that you have to make. Just 10 minutes and just every morning. What's your current morning routine? Tell me in the comments. And if someone in your life is over 60 and concerned about cognitive health, share this with them. These 3 habits will help them, and they need to know. As I always say, take care of your brain. It is who you are. Everything shared in this video is general medical information based on current neuroscience research and clinical experience. It is not personal medical advice. Please speak with your own physician before making any changes to your care.